Welcome to the Explainer. So, have you ever walked into someone's house and it's just absolutely spotless? Not because they're throwing a party, and definitely not because they just spent their entire weekend deep cleaning, but simply because it's always like that. Today, we're diving straight into the environmental feedback loop. We're going to see how rewiring your physical space is actually all about rewiring your brain for absolute mental clarity and peace.
It really makes you wonder, right? Are these people just way more disciplined than us, or are they wired differently? Look, we usually think tidy people just have this endless, magical reservoir of willpower that the rest of us somehow missed out on. But let's go ahead and debunk that myth right out of the gate. People who keep a pristine space, they're operating from an entirely different psychological framework. It isn't magic, it is literally neurologically different.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The myth of discipline and the invisible link between your space and your brain. To really grasp this invisible link, we first need to look at a foundational concept. Your brain actually doesn't distinguish between your inner world and your outer world as cleanly as you might think. And that brings us to cognitive load. In environmental psychology, this is basically the total amount of mental effort your brain is using at any given exact moment. So here's why this is absolutely crucial. Physical clutter, like, say, that ominous pile of laundry on the bedroom chair you've been actively ignoring for 3 days, or those dishes in the sink, it's actively competing for your attention, even when you aren't consciously thinking about it. Your brain registers every single out-of-place item as unfinished business. And unfinished business? Well, it's mentally expensive. It silently and constantly drains your energy.
There's actually a fascinating study from Princeton University that looked directly at this dynamic. They proved that physical clutter quite literally overloads your visual cortex. So it's not just, an aesthetic annoyance. Clutter physically impairs your brain's ability to process information and focus. That messy room, it's literally making you less sharp, less focused, and significantly more fatigued.
Just compare these two extremes for a second. A high-stress environment is incredibly expensive for your brain. It's constantly competing for your attention and just spiking your cortisol levels. But in a high-clarity space, your brain finally gets permission to relax. People who clean every day aren't just tidier, they actually think more clearly and are way calmer, simply because their environment is working for them, not against them.
Moving right along to Section 2, the environmental feedback loop, and navigating your internal locus of control.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it frames control. Think about how much of life is entirely unpredictable. You can't control the economy, the weather, traffic, or whatever your boss decides to throw at you in a meeting. And for a lot of us, that unpredictability creates this constant humming background anxiety. But your home, that is your domain. Maintaining your space is a reliable, physical way to signal to your own nervous system, hey, I am in charge here. I can handle things. As the saying goes, your clutter is not neutral. It is trying to tell you something. A mess is rarely just a mess. Often, it's a physical mirror for internal chaos, stress, or sometimes even depression. When life feels completely out of control on the inside, our environments almost always deteriorate to reflect that on the outside. And the biological impact of that chaos is honestly staggering. Research published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found a direct link between cluttered homes, specifically spaces full of unfinished projects, and higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol throughout the entire day. Your home state literally dictates your baseline stress level for every single hour you spend inside it. So if you're finding it impossible to relax in the evening, your environment might just be the thing quietly draining you. But there is a super powerful flip side to this, and it's called behavioral activation. This is a clinical term in psychology for using physical action to literally shift your emotional state and discharge nervous energy. Have you ever felt incredibly anxious and then suddenly just started scrubbing the dishes or, completely reorganizing a closet? Yeah, that is stress cleaning. By completing a physical task that has a clear beginning, middle, and end, you're actually giving your brain a healthy way to discharge that nervous energy. The external order helps your internal mind finally settle down. Which brings us to Section 3, identity and locus of control. Becoming the person who cleans. And this brilliantly illustrates a core truth. People with effortlessly clean homes haven't somehow unlocked a secret burning passion for vacuuming. No way. Instead, they've internalized a completely different identity. An identity is built through evidence. This is rooted in cognitive dissonance research, meaning your repeated actions actively shape your self-concept. Every single time you wipe down a table after dinner or make your bed, you're providing physical proof to your brain that you are an organized person who follows through on small commitments. You do it enough times, and your brain just updates its picture of who you are.
All right, section 4, the science of automation. Let's talk about breaking free from the discipline trap. Look, I want to assure you right now, discipline is a finite resource. If you're relying purely on raw willpower to clean your house, you are absolutely going to burn out. Automation is the real key here. A 2009 study in the European Journal of Social Psychology found that it takes an average of 66 days for a new behavior to become completely automatic. So the goal isn't to force yourself to clean every single day for the rest of your life. Not at all. The goal is just to consciously maintain these habits for long enough, around 66 days, until it shifts from being this draining chore to something your brain just does on complete autopilot. Next up, section 5, rewiring for mental clarity and the incredible power of the morning routine.
Now, if you want to hit that 66-day mark effectively, timing absolutely matters. The morning is far and away the most critical neurological window for establishing these feedback loops. Think about it. Your morning brain is uniquely primed for change. Right after you wake up, you experience this natural cortisol spike, which creates a window of peak neuroplasticity. So when your very first act of the day is making your bed, just like Admiral William McRaven famously advised, you're capitalizing on that state. You get a powerful little dopamine hit from that completion loop, and it builds incredible momentum that multiplies into more completed tasks as the day goes on.
Let's move to section 6 and see how this builds into something practical. How to shrink the start and actionable steps to reclaim your space.
Okay, if you're currently feeling completely overwhelmed by a messy house and literally have no idea where to begin, do not panic. You don't need superhuman willpower, you just need a solid system. Step 1, shrink the start. Don't wait for a towering mountain of dishes that requires a Himalayan expedition to conquer, right? Catch messes when they're small. Just wipe the counter right after you cook. At that point, you aren't really cleaning, you're just maintaining. Step 2, habit stocking. Attach your new behavior to an existing trigger. A classic example, wipe down the kitchen counters while you're waiting for your morning coffee to brew. And step 3, make it enjoyable. Put on a playlist you actually love so it feels way less like a punishment and more like a daily ritual that just lifts your mood.
So the crucial point I want you to take away from all this is your home is a physical expression of your standards and, frankly, what you believe you deserve. When you take the time to order your environment, it isn't just about making things look pretty. It is an act of profound self-respect. It's you actively setting a boundary and sending a very clear message to your own nervous system that you deserve a space that feels safe, welcoming, and calm.
So, what does this all mean for you? Are you ready to show up for your own inner peace? I really want to invite you to try the 7-day challenge. Pick just one room in your home, could be the kitchen, the bedroom, wherever, and maintain it for 7 straight days. Just experience that neurological shift, that wave of relief, and that incredible clarity for yourself. I promise, once you feel the difference in your baseline energy and focus, you are going to want to automate this for life. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Go start your 7 days right now and ask yourself, if changing your room can change your mind, what else could you rewire?